Welcome to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Doris Day, the beautiful blonde whose sunny screen presence and silken singing voice guaranteed box office and record chart hits in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. In a rapidly changing America, Doris Day straddled the line between sexy and innocent. The dancer-turned-singer-turned-actress starred in the most successful romantic comedies of the 1950s. Behind the scenes, however, Day's personal relationships were less than fairy tale friendly. Why was Doris Day considered the world's oldest virgin? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Day was the ultimate paradox of the early 1960s. The sexual virgin. Doris Day was the top female box office star in Hollywood history, CNN reports, starring in almost 40 movies in the 1950s and 60s. Comedies such as Pillow Talk, Lover Came Back, and That Touch of Mink made Day America's sweetheart. Her co-stars included Rock Hudson, Clark Gable, Cary Grant, and Tony Curtis. She also stood out in Hollywood dramas, including Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. She was often described as the girl next door. Her stunning looks, coupled with her smile and charm, gave the impression that she was living a perfect life. But that impression was a lie. She may have rose to fame with films like Calamity Jane, Love Me or Leave Me, but friends revealed all she really wanted to be was a good wife. But back in the 1950s, Doris was huge, a talented and charming leading lady who sang like a dream and had a rare talent for comedy. She co-starred with Everyone became a kind of every woman heroine to millions of American females. A rosy-cheeked symbol of Eisenhower-era wholesomeness, she fell radically out of fashion as soon as the 1960s counterculture emerged. But her typecasting as a squeaky clean girl next door was totally at odds with who she really was, and prematurely ended the career of a luminous cinematic talent. Doris Day was a movie star unique even among other movie stars of her era. Her brand of effortless charm and wholesome femininity made her the embodiment of the ideal woman during the late 50s and early 60s. She was simultaneously virginal yet sexy, career-focused yet domestic, elegant yet approachable. She didn't just enjoy being a girl, she presented an uncomplicated, nigh mythical image of womanhood. She is often invoked as shorthand for a kind of outmoded sexuality, with virginity firmly maintained until marriage. Although this assumption is widespread, close attention to the facts of Day's own life challenges it, and the majority of her film roles also prove otherwise, with Day most frequently portraying a woman of maturely sexual desires. Yet Day's peppy all-American girl persona belied a career full of hard work that made her far more realistic than she seemed. And even as she represented a vanishing vision of the perfect woman, her own life was an example of just how far removed that image was from reality. Doris Day's life wasn't always as sunny as her chipper personality suggested. The wholesome Doris Day persona, created by her film publicist for the Ohio Girl, whose real name was Doris Marianne von Kappelhoff, didn't quite tally with the off-screen reality of a woman who had money problems and 3 failed marriages behind her. Born Doris Mary Ann von Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922 in Cincinnati, Ohio, her parents came from German stock. Her father, Frederick Wilhelm von Kappelhoff, was a music teacher, choir master, and church organist and loved classical music. Her mother, Alma Sophia Welz, on the other hand, was an outgoing woman who enjoyed hillbilly music. Doris was the youngest of 3. She had 2 brothers, Richard, who died before she was born, and Paul, who was a few years older. She was named after silent movie actress Doris Kenyon, whom her mother admired. Growing up in the 1930s, Doris was attracted to music and dance, eventually forming part of a dance duo which performed locally until a car she was riding in was struck by a train, crushing her right leg, a severe injury that curtailed her ambition to become a professional dancer. However, it was this interim period during her recovery which helped her discover her talent for singing, as she sang along to the tunes on the radio. Unable to dance anymore, Day was especially enthralled with Ella Fitzgerald and spent time studying the star singer, trying to catch the subtle ways she shaded her voice, the casual yet clean ways she sang the words. During this long, boring period, I used to while away a lot of time listening to the radio, sometimes singing along with the likes of Benny Goodman, Duke Ellington, Tommy Dorsey, and Glenn Miller, she recalled. Her mother encouraged her to take singing lessons. Alma took Doris to see vocal coach Grace Rain, who was so impressed with Doris's natural talent that she offered her 3 lessons for the price of 1. Doris credits Rain with impressing upon her the importance of delivering a lyric, and today Doris says that Rain had the greatest impact on her singing career. Doris Day began her professional career as a vocalist on the WLW radio program Carlin's Carnival. Her radio performances attracted the attention of Barney Rapp, who was looking for a girl vocalist and appointed her. Rapp encouraged her to adopt a stage name, and she changed her last name to Day after the song Day After Day. In 1940, Day landed a spot as a vocalist with the band led by Bob Crosby, brother of crooner Bing Crosby and a successful band leader in his own right. But later that year, she teamed up with Les Brown and his group. With Brown, Day scored her first #1 hits, Sentimental Journey and My Dreams Are Getting Better All the Time in 1944. Her work with Brown made her a popular singing sensation during World War II. Day, in her songs, seemed to be accessible and personable to her audience. After parting ways with Brown in 1946, she soon made the transition from the concert stage to the big screen. By the 1950s, she was starring and singing in popular comedies, musicals, and melodramas, performing in 40 films by the end of her big screen career in 1968. Her films matched her with legends of the era, including James Cagney, Kirk Douglas, Rock Hudson, Lauren Bacall, and Ginger Rogers. In many ways, Day's girl next door persona stood in stark contrast to another, more progressive blonde of the era, Marilyn Monroe. If Monroe was seen as the bad girl, Day was the good one, a pillar of virtue. In fact, Day even turned down the role of Mrs. Robinson in the 1967 film The Graduate because she felt the idea of an older woman seducing a younger man offended her sense of values. Yet, as time passed, Day appeared conflicted, once remarking, "I have the unfortunate reputation of being Miss Goody Two-Shoes, America's Virgin and all that, so I'm afraid it's going to shock some people for me to say this, but I staunchly believe no 2 people should get married until they have lived together." As the sexual revolution swept the face of America, Doris Day's film roles remained unchanged. Pure, conservative, and sweet characters stayed her forte. For her unwillingness to budge with the times, pundits of the 1960s and 70s snidely dubbed her the world's oldest virgin. Doris has been an incredibly successful actress and singer, a source told the National Examiner. She's recorded 800 hit songs and appeared in 39 films, but her biggest regret is that she never found the one, and she could never understand why. She did, however, go through plenty of men in her search, marrying 4 times, all ending in disaster. Her laundry list of loves reads like a who's who of classic Hollywood and includes Jack Carson, Burt Reynolds, and even Ronald Reagan. Throughout her life, Day struggled through relationships with violent, abusive, and controlling men. She described her first husband, a musician with whom she had one child, as a physically abusive, psychopathic sadist. At 16, Doris had wed a trombone player called Al Jordan, with whom she had her only child. But the marriage was not a happy one, and Jordan was allegedly both abusive and violent. Day was allegedly beaten by her husband while she was pregnant with their son, Terry. The dark side of his makeup showed itself immediately. On the second day of our marriage, his band manager gave me a wedding present, a leather makeup case. Al's face went white with jealousy. I hoped, optimist that I am, that my pregnancy would make him less jealous, but it was horrendous. He came home one day with the name of an abortionist saying, "We're too young to have kids." I was appalled and said, "No way." The couple separated in 1943, and Jordan later committed suicide. By 1946, Day was married again, this time to a saxophonist, Georg Weidler, who allegedly couldn't handle his wife's fame. Weidler was only marginally less obnoxious than Al Jordan and, in any case, their union proved no more successful, and they were divorced within 3 years. In 1951, her romantic fortunes seemed to have finally changed when she tied the knot with independent film producer Martin Melcher. He became her de facto manager and produced many of her most successful films. He also adopted her son Terry, and the marriage lasted until his sudden death from a heart attack in 1968. Melcher controlled her finances and left her $500,000 in debt and had secretly squandered her $20 million fortune. Before his death, Melcher also contracted her, without telling her, to a 5-year TV series on CBS, The Doris Day Show, and she subsequently wrestled with the network for creative control in order to pay off her debts. Doris Day captured the hearts of several U.S. Republican presidents. For one, she dated Ronald Reagan, even acting in movies with the actor turned head of state. Day dated Reagan prior to becoming involved with her agent, Marty. The two starred together in the 1952 movie The Winning Team. She relayed that Reagan was a skilled dancer and told a biographer he had a political personality because he was engaging and strong. George H.W. Bush even admitted to having a crush on Day as a young World War II pilot. In the 1950s and 60s, Doris Day was America's box office sweetheart, but she spent her final days being manipulated by those around her, sources who were close to the legend allege. Doris Day is often dismissed as a bland and one-dimensional actress, but this is grossly unfair. She married again in 1976, but predictably, her union with restaurant maitre d' Barry Comden did not last. They were divorced in 1981, and thereafter Doris devoted herself to the animal welfare foundation she'd established. She'd been through the ringer over the years, survived abusive relationships and bad marriages, and battled back from ill health, financial ruin, and scandal. She subsequently sued his business partner Jerry Rosenthal to recover a portion of the estate, but was forced to appear in primetime TV light entertainment series that her husband had agreed to without telling her. The shock of all this coincided with the decline of her popularity. Up to that point, she'd made over 40 films and as many hit albums, but by the late 1960s, flower power and the sexual revolution had begun to make Doris Day seem irrelevant. Other stars were able to adapt, but Day was so indelibly associated with the wholesome hausfrau image that there seemed no place for her among the 1960s swingers. So she gracefully withdrew. She popped up on television now and then and made a few more records, at which amused session musicians reported that Day still used a swear jar. Doris does not approve of cursing. But by the late 1970s, she'd retreated to the privacy of her Carmel mansion, where she cared for hundreds of rescued animals. After retiring from acting, Doris and her son Terry bought the Cypress Inn, a hotel near her home in Carmel. Of course, it's related to her work for animals. The hotel is known for its dog-friendly atmosphere. She was helped by her son Terry, a successful record producer, but he sadly died of cancer in 2004 at the age of 62. Day died in her home in Carmel Valley, California, just weeks after her 97th birthday. Otherwise healthy, she had recently contracted a serious case of pneumonia. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new here.